Morning.
Good morning, Judge.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Well, so counsel, I just wanted to give you guys a quick heads up while we're waiting for somebody. When we get to Mr. Jose Maria's case, I may have a conflict that I just need to put on the record and see if you guys are comfortable with me doing the hearing. He has a
Okay.
case pending over in Pasquayaki Court. He's in the Healing to Wellness program. I have had no involvement with it, but I think I handled a phone call one time and routed him to Rafael Gallego.
Okay.
But we can talk more when we get to that.
Oh,
Good morning, thank you, Your Honor.
Morning, sir. Can I get your name?
Jaden Jerome Betters, and good morning to you, Your Honor.
Morning. All right. So we're seeing you this morning on a review hearing for, it looks like you've got a warrant out of another jurisdiction. I also see that you're being held on some other matters. So, sir, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this for another review hearing on December 27th at 9 o'clock in the morning, just while we see what's going on with all your other cases. Obviously, you still have the right to remain silent in this case, and anything you say can and will be used against you. So make sure you only talk to your attorneys. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, that's all for this morning. You're excused.
and Your Honor, I believe the court will now handle misdemeanors. May I be excused briefly?
You may.
Thank you.
Good morning, sir. Can I get your name? Jail, I think he's muted.
Martinez?
All right, Mr. Martinez, we're seeing you this morning. It looks like you've got a couple of cases out of justice court and some cases out of city court. So we're gonna just go through them and set your next court dates, all right?
Yes, ma'am.
So in your justice court cases, let me start off by saying that you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You also have the right to an attorney, though not necessarily at court expense. Now, in your justice court matters, it looks like you've got two cases where warrants were issued back in November of this year by Judge Roberts. One case involves shoplifting, criminal trespass, and the other case also involves shoplifting, criminal trespass, but possession of drug paraphernalia. Sir, what I'm going to do in both of these cases is I'm going to hold you on a $500 bond. That's what's listed in the warrants. I'm going to order that you not have any contact with any of the alleged victims. So that'll be the businesses, and you're also not to return to the incident locations. I'm also going to order that you not possess any alcohol or illegal drugs. Your hearings on your justice court cases are going to be December the 2nd at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. All right, and give me 1 second to finish your paperwork on these two, and then we'll talk about your city matters. Do you have any questions on those so far?
No, ma'am.
All right, and I'm also going to appoint Jill Gukin to represent you, and your paperwork will have her contact information. For the hearing date. Sorry about that. That's just something separate. All right, now let's go ahead and talk about your city court cases. And in there you've got, looks like you have 3 cases that are open. involving charges relating to criminal trespass in the third degree, drug paraphernalia possession, and theft or shoplifting. It looks like there may also be some new failure to appear charges. I'm going to go ahead and appoint the City Public Defender's Office to represent you in your cases. Now, the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do your arraignment for anything that you've not already been arraigned on. So in addition to the rights I already told you about, you do have a right to be present at any and all court proceedings. However, if you fail to show, those hearings can go forward without you, and a warrant can issue for your arrest. You also have the right to have a trial and have the prosecution prove their case against you. While you don't have any burden whatsoever, if you want to call witnesses on your own behalf, you can use the court subpoena power to get them to court for you. If you fail to appear at the time of sentencing, then you run the risk of losing your right to a direct appeal. I'm going to enter not guilties on your behalf for any new charges. I'm going to order that you be held on a $200 cash or secured bond. That's the bond that I see listed in Judge Hale's warrant. If you post that bond, you're not to possess or consume any alcohol or illegal drugs. You're not to have any contact with any victims or return to any of the incident locations. As I mentioned, the Public Defender's Office will be appointed to represent you. I'm going to give you two different court dates. If you're in custody, you're going to have a video review hearing on December the 6th, 2024 at 1:45 in the afternoon. If you're out of custody, then you're going to have a hearing on January 6th, 2025 at 1:30. And those will be at City Court with Judge Hale. Do you have any questions, sir? I need you to say yes or no out loud.
No, yeah.
Okay, that's all for this morning. You're excused.
Hey, Claire?
Morning, can I get your name?
Kaylee Marie Player.
All right, Ms. Player. So we're seeing you on a few different cases this morning. Looks like you've got a couple of warrants that were issued out of Justice Court, and then you've got, looks like 4 cases with Tucson City Court. All right, so we're going to talk about your JP Court cases first, and then we'll do the city ones. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You also have the right to an attorney, though not necessarily at court expense. Jail, can you confirm that she's currently on a hold?
Yes, Judge, she's with a Title 36.
All right, thank you. All right, ma'am. So what I'm going to do with your justice court matters in one of your cases, it looks like you were charged with a few different offenses, including possession of drug paraphernalia and criminal trespass in the third degree. There's also some failure to appear charges, in addition to some others. And then looking at your other case, it looks like it's a possession of drug paraphernalia and criminal trespass. Now, in both of these, Judge Steele issued warrants back in March of 2024. I am going to order that you be held on the amount listed in the warrants, which is $500. I'll make it cash or secured. That'll be in both cases. I'm going to appoint Anna Dennis to represent you. You are not to possess or consume any alcohol or illegal drugs. And your next court date for your JP cases will be December the 2nd, 2024 at 1 in the afternoon.
So am I staying in jail?
You are, so you've got a Title 36 hold in place right now that I can't do anything about, and I'm imposing a bond on your 2 justice court matters, and then we'll talk about your city court matters. But until that bond's posted, until that hold's lifted, you're still going to be staying there.
So I'm staying here?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
All right, now in your city court cases, It looks like your cases are assigned to Judge Blue over in Tucson City Court. And they involve charges relating to disorderly conduct, drug paraphernalia, criminal trespass, and it looks like there are a number of failures to appear. I'm going to do your arraignment real quick for any new charges that you haven't been arraigned on yet, which might just be the failure to appear offenses. So in addition to the rights I read you before, you also have the right to attend any and all court proceedings. However, if you fail to show, a warrant can issue for your arrest, and those hearings can happen without you. You do have the right to have a trial and have the state prove their case against you. You also have the right, although you don't have any burden to do so, if you want to call witnesses on your own behalf, you can use the court's subpoena power to get those folks to testify for you. If you fail to appear at the time of sentencing, then you run the risk of losing your right to a direct appeal. So in this case, in your city court cases, I'm going to order you be held on a $200 cash or secured bond. You're not to possess or consume any alcohol or illegal drugs. You're not to return to any incident locations, and you're not to have any contact with any listed victims. I'm going to appoint the city public defender's office to represent you. Your next court date is going to be with Judge Blue on December the 9th, 2024 at 1:45 in the afternoon. Do you have any questions, ma'am?
No.
All right, that's all for this morning. You're excused.
There. So where you were sitting before.
Pointer.
Where was that door?
Morning, sir. Can I get your name?
Hunter Stephen Pointer.
All right, Mr. Pointer, we're seeing you for a couple of different matters. It looks like you have some city court cases, and it looks like you also have a couple of cases out of justice court. So we're going to start with your justice court ones first. So, sir, you do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You also have the right to an attorney, though not necessarily at court expense. In your justice court cases, one of them involves charges relating to domestic violence assault and domestic violence disorderly conduct. There was a warrant issued back in February of this year by Judge Wilson. And then you have another case involving allegations of, looks like, shoplifting and possession of drug paraphernalia. I'm going to order that you be held on a $500 bond, cash or secured, in your domestic violence case. In that case, if you're released, you're not to possess or consume any alcohol or illegal drugs. You're not to commit any other acts of domestic violence. You're not to possess any firearms or weapons. You are to have no contact with any of the alleged victims, and you're not to return to any alleged incident location. I'm going to appoint Jill Gookin to represent you. And your next court date will be December. Your next court date will be December the 2nd, 2024 at 1 in the afternoon. And that will be a Pima County Justice Court. So give me 1 second to complete your paperwork on this. All right, now in your city court cases, you've got 3 matters that are pending. It looks like they are all assigned to Judge Maldonado. And these cases involve allegations of theft or shoplifting, criminal trespass in the first degree, and possession of drug paraphernalia. It looks like in at least one of the cases, you failed to appear at a motion to quash hearing. So, sir, what I'm going to do in your city court cases is I'm going to hold you on a $250 cash or secured bond. I'm going to put a note on your paperwork that you also have the justice court matter with a bond. You are not to possess or consume any alcohol or illegal drugs. You're not to have any contact with any of the alleged victims or return to any of the incident locations. I'm going to appoint the city public defender's office to represent you. I'm also going to do your arraignment for any new charges on this matter. So in addition to the rights I read to you before, you also have the right to be present for any and all court proceedings. However, if you fail to show, then a warrant can issue for your arrest and those hearings can go forward without you. You do have the right to have a trial and to have the prosecution prove their case against you. You don't have to do anything. However, if you'd like to call witnesses on your own behalf, you can use the court's subpoena power to get those folks to come to court for you. If you are convicted and if you fail to appear at the time of sentencing, then you run the risk of losing your right to a direct appeal. I'm going to enter a not guilty for any charges that you have not already been arraigned on. And your next court date in your city court matters is going to be a video review hearing on December the 6th, 2024 at 1:45 in the afternoon. That will be at city court with Judge Maldonado. If you are out of custody, then your court date is going to be December the 30th, 2024 at 9:30 in the morning, and you'll get paperwork that has all of this information. Do you have any questions, sir?
No, ma'am.
All right, that's all for this morning. You're excused.
Price. Good, no. With it.
Good morning, sir. Can I get your name? Right there. Let me just pull up your pretrial services report here. All right, so we're seeing you this morning on some new misdemeanor domestic violence criminal damage charges. It looks like these are out of Pima County Justice Court. We're going to do your initial appearance and set your release. So, sir, you do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You also have the right to an attorney, though not necessarily at court expense. Now, I've read the pretrial services workup, and it looks like the victim in this case, Miss Palumbo, has indicated she is okay with having contact with you, and she does not object to you being released from custody. If I release you, will you promise to appear at your next court date?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, sir. I am going to order that you be released on your promise to appear. You are not to possess or consume any alcohol or illegal drugs. You're not to commit any acts of domestic violence. You're not allowed to possess any firearms or weapons. Your next court date is going to be December the 30th.
Yes. Yes.
That will be at 10:30 in the morning at Pima
Okay.
County Justice Court, and that will be an arraignment hearing with Judge Roberts.
All right.
You have any questions, sir?
No.
All right, that's all for this morning. You're excused.
Ravendale. Ravendale. Closer.
First. Rockland Public Safety.
Morning, sir. Can I get your name?
Anthony Ravenel.
All right, so we're seeing you this morning on some new charges relating to, it looks like criminal damage, domestic violence, disorderly conduct, also domestic violence, and assault domestic violence. Sir, you do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You also have the right to an attorney, though not necessarily at court expense. And it looks like this case is going to be assigned to Martinez City Court. Just give me 1 second. I'm just reading your.
Alright.
So, sir, do you have a current address?
Yes, I do.
Is that in Arizona?
It's not.
Is that the address on, it looks like Water Tree Dam in South Carolina?
Yes.
All right, sir, I'm going to order that you be held on a $250 cash or secured bond. You are not to possess or consume any alcohol or illegal drugs. You're not to commit any acts of domestic violence. You're not to possess any firearms or weapons. I'm going to appoint Janet Altschuler to represent you. And you'll get paperwork that has her contact information on it. Your next court date is going to be an arraignment hearing on December the 2nd, 2024 at noon. And if you're still in custody at that time, then the jail will take care of getting you to your hearing. Do you have any questions?
If I pay the $250, I'm free to go, or
If you postpone, you will be released from custody as long as there aren't any other matters holding you. However, you will still need to make that court date. If you fail to make that court date, a warrant can issue for your arrest.
okay.
All right, sir, that's all for this morning. You're excused.
Obviously, that could be.
Rodriguez?
Good morning. Can I get your name?
Memo Dionisio Rodriguez de la Viz.
All right, sir, we're seeing you on a couple of different matters this morning. It looks like you've got a case out of Tucson City Court, and it looks like you also have a case out of Pima County Justice Court. So in your Justice Court case, the charges you're facing are driving under the influence. You've got an impairment charge. You've also got one involving drugs being in your system. Sir, you do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You also have the right to an attorney, though not necessarily at court expense. In this particular case, let me just check something real quick.
Uh-huh.
I'm just looking at your city court matter to see if there's any.
I don't know, to be honest. I don't remember none of these cases. I know I got put on probation and I tried to complete that. That's all.
Well, sir, that's something that you'll have to figure out with the courts that are assigned to your case. The only thing I'm doing today is looking at your release conditions. I don't have any other information on your cases.
Well, thank you very much.
Okay, and in your city court matter, it looks like you may have been on probation at some point.
Yeah. I was supposed to make payments and I did. So I don't know. I really don't know what. Man, I'll figure it out.
Well, just a reminder, sir, anything you say in here, it's being recorded. So the reason I tell you that you have a right to remain silent, it's not because I don't want to hear it. I don't want you to do something that hurts your case. So, sir, what I'm going to do in your cases, starting with the Justice Court one, is I'm going to go ahead and release you on your promise to appear.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to order that you comply with any probation conditions that are issued in your city court case.
Okay.
And your next court date for your justice court case is going to be December the 30th, 2024
Okay,
at 8:30 in the morning, and that will be an arraignment. And based
okay,
on yeah, it'll be an arraignment over at Pima County Justice Court. At that time, based on the nature of your charges, the court will go ahead and assign you an attorney. In the meantime, you are not to drive without a valid license. You are not to possess or consume any alcohol or illegal drugs. And as I mentioned, you're going to need to comply with your city court probation, and we'll talk about that in a second. All right, now looking at your city court case.
yeah.
In that case, looks like a warrant had issued.
Yeah, that's what I just said.
Okay. So, sir, I'm not seeing any indication that they have filed a petition to revoke yet, but I am going to give
Yeah.
a hearing. Your hearing is going to be on December the 19th, 2024 at 9:30 in the morning. That will be with Judge Cerrillo over at Tucson City Court.
Okay. Okay,
And as conditions in this case, I'm going to order that you comply again with your probation conditions. I'm also going to order that you not drive without a valid license and that you
Okay.
not possess or consume alcohol.
alright.
And sir, do you have an assigned probation officer in that matter?
No, I do not. It's unsupervised.
All right, so like I mentioned, your next court date is going to be December the 19th, 2024 at 9:30 in the morning. Do you have any questions, sir?
I'm getting released today then. Is that what?
I'm ordering you released on both matters. You need to comply with your probation conditions and you need to make sure you get to your court dates. Understood?
Understood.
All right, that's all for this morning. You're excused.
Thank you very much. You have a great day.
You too.
Yes.
Good morning. Can I get your name?
Sean Sabrito?
All right, sir, we're seeing you this morning on, looks like some new charges out of Pima County Justice Court relating to disorderly conduct, assault, multiple counts of disorderly conduct. They're all alleged to be domestic violence offenses. Sir, you do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You also have the right to an attorney, though not necessarily at court expense. Just give me 1 second. I just want to look at your pretrial services report.
Right. Mhm.
All right, sir, I am inclined to release you from custody, but looking at the pretrial services report, it looks like pretrial services wasn't able to reach the alleged victims to say if they had any input as to whether they wanted to have contact with you or anything like that. So at this time, I'm going to order that you not have contact with Diana Storms.
Just then,
1 second, don't
Yeah.
say case or the facts of your case, okay? If you say something here, it can be used against you.
no, I was gonna say, if I need to go get clothes from there, get a hold of the cops up there, and have them bring me there to get close from my house?
Yeah.
Because you're saying no contact with Diane. That's all I was asking.
All right, sir. So what I'm gonna order is I will check that box. You're also not to have any contact with Ariana Davis, Cindy Westfall. And it looks like a minor who was involved in the case that Miss Westfall is the representative for. I will indicate on your paperwork that you can return one time with police escort to the residence to gather your things, but otherwise you're not to have any contact.
Let me tell you, I'll find somewhere to live. It's fine. Better place.
As further conditions of your release, sir, you are not to possess or consume any alcohol or illegal drugs. You're not to commit any acts of domestic violence. You're not to have any contact with any of the listed victims. You're not to return to their residences or works. Your next court date is going to be December the 30th, 2024 at 10:30 in the morning.
Okay, with Diane, that's my mom, and I was living with her. So that was my residence.
Well, sir, as of right now, until I hear any different, you are not allowed to return to that residence, so you're going to have to make other arrangements. You can
I will.
return one time to gather your things. So your next court date
Okay.
is the 30th, and that's all for this morning. You're excused.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Oh, I can sit back on that. Oh. They went good. They're.
Good morning. Can I get your name?
Danica Wowie.
All right, ma'am, we're seeing you this morning on some new charges relating to, it looks like disorderly conduct and criminal damage. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You also have the right to an attorney, though not necessarily at court expense. You have the right to be present at any and all court proceedings. However, if you fail to show, those hearings can go forward without you and a warrant could issue for your arrest. You also have the right to have a trial and have the prosecution prove their case against you. While you don't need to do anything, if you would like to have witnesses called on your behalf, you can use the court's subpoena power to get those folks to court convicted. And if you fail to appear at sentencing, you run the risk of losing your right to a direct appeal.
Or. 44.
All right, ma'am, I'm showing an address for you on East Beverly Street. Is that still your address?
I have two.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Correct. I have two. I have 6001 East Beverly. I've been there since I was 19, and then 2 houses down, my parents, 5943 East Beverly. My father passed away, and my husband and I took over the responsibilities of the property. My identity was stolen, and we had a cyber breach, and so the property was put in our name.
Okay, ma'am. So basically why I'm asking is I need to make sure that if I release you, you're going to get notices of your paperwork.
Oh, yeah. Yes, I will.
Is your address. Now,
Yes.
Child Services was not able to get in contact with Dustin Marshall, who is the listed victim on this case. And
It's my husband.
what I'm going to do is I'm going to order for now that you not have any contact with him and you not have any contact with wherever he's living. So if I release you, do you have another place where you could go that's not where he's living?
Correct, but he's up in Phoenix, so that's the difference. Is he works and lives up in Phoenix. I live here in Tucson right now.
As long as you are not having contact wherever he lives and you're not having contact with him, then it doesn't matter where you're living. So what I'm going to do is I am going to order that you be released on your promise to appear.
Of course.
As conditions of your release, you're not to possess or consume any alcohol or illegal drugs. You're not to commit any acts of domestic violence. You're not to possess any firearms. For right now, you're not to have any contact whatsoever of any kind with Dustin Marshall. Do you understand?
Correct.
And I'm also going to order that you not have contact with his residence. All right, so your next court date is going to be January the 7th,
Okay.
2025. And that will be at 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Okay.
And that'll be over at Tucson City Court with Judge Million. All right, and it looks like you may have some other cases over there, so it's likely they will all be heard at the same time. Do you have any questions, ma'am?
What do I do if he comes to my residence?
You were not to have any contact whatsoever. So my recommendation, if you have any legal questions, is to consult with an attorney.
I have an attorney that was city court, so would that be the same attorney for this case?
It's very likely.
Okay.
So I would go ahead and actually, let me just check something. All right, so what I'm going to do, ma'am, is I am going to appoint the city public defender's office now so that that attorney or somebody from their office will be assigned now. My recommendation is that if you have any questions like that, you contact them because I cannot give you legal advice.
Okay.
All right, do you have any questions, ma'am?
No,
All right, that's all for this morning. You're excused.
thank you.
What?
No, I don't.
Good morning, sir. Can I get your name?
Valentino Alfonso Mott, M-O-T-T, last name Mott.
All right, sir, we're seeing you this morning on some new charges, and these will be, looks like they will be in Tucson City Court, and they involve allegations of threats and intimidation, failure to comply with a court order, disorderly conduct, and assault. And it looks like the disorderly conduct and the assault are both listed as domestic violence offenses. So we're going to do your initial hearing. We're going to do your arraignment. We're going to talk about release conditions and your next court date.
Yes, ma'am.
Sir, you do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You also have the right to an attorney, though not necessarily at court expense. You have the right to be present for any and all court proceedings. However, if you fail to show for court, those hearings can go forward without you and a warrant can issue for your arrest. You do have the right to have a trial. At trial, you don't need to do anything and you can put the state to its burden to prove whether or not you're guilty. However, if you would like to call witnesses on your own behalf, then you can use the court subpoena power to get those folks to come to court for you. If you are convicted and if you fail to show at the time of sentencing, you also run the risk of losing your right to a direct appeal. Do you understand those, sir?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
All right, sir, I'm going to order that you be held on a $250 cash or secured bond. As conditions of your release, you're not to possess or consume any alcohol or illegal drugs. You're not to commit any acts of domestic violence. You're not to possess any firearms or weapons. I'm going to order that you not have any contact with the victims in this case, Denise Pine or Dwight Peters. You're not to have any contact with their residences or places of employment. I'm going to appoint the city public defender's office to represent you. I am going to enter not guilties on your behalf. I'm also going to order that if there are any outstanding active orders of protection, you need to comply with those. And I believe there is one that may have been issued with regards to Mr. Peters. Do you understand?
No, I'm not sure what's going on with that. It's just kind of brand new to me. I never knew I had any kind of order of protection, with him.
All right,
The one that I do remember is the one you just spoke about previously, concerning Denise Time and myself. He went down there to have it quashed. We were supposed to wait on paperwork. We never got it. So I don't know what was going on with that now.
well, just as a reminder, anything you say can be used against you. So I'd advise you to have all these questions, ask them to your attorney. All right. So I am going to enter not guilties on your behalf. And I am appointing the public defender's office. Your next court date is going to be December the 11th, 2024 at 1:30 in the afternoon. That's going to be in front of Judge Million over at Tucson City Court. If you're still in custody, the jail will take you to court and it'll be a video hearing like this. If you are out of custody, you need to make sure you show or a warrant can issue. Any questions, sir?
I have my car is over in her face, and I guess I have to get an officer to escort me over there to get my car. But I do have my own residence. I actually was invited to be at her residence. Unbeknownst to me that he still had the outstanding order of protection on me.
I'm gonna stop you again. It's not because I didn't want to hear it. I don't want you to say something that's gonna mess up your case, all right?
Right.
So I am gonna order that, I am gonna check a box that if you are released from custody, you can return one time with law enforcement to gather your belongings.
All right.
No further this morning, you're excused. Good morning, ma'am. Can I get your name?
Darkelly, investigator.
All right, ma'am, you are here for new charges relating to driving under the influence. And these are going to be out of Tucson City Court. Ma'am, you do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You also have the right to an attorney, and I'm going to appoint the city public defender's office to represent you on these charges. Now, in addition to those rights, you do have the right to be present for any and all court proceedings. However, if you fail to show for court, those hearings can go forward without you and a warrant could issue for your arrest. You also have the right to have a trial and have the state prove their case against you. You don't need to do anything. However, should you wish to call witnesses on your own behalf, then you can use the court's subpoena power to get them there for you. Now, lastly, if you are convicted and if you fail to appear at the time of sentencing, you run the risk of losing your right to a direct appeal. So, ma'am, what I'm going to do this morning is I'm going to release you on your promise to appear. You are not to drive without a valid license. You are not to possess or consume any alcohol or illegal drugs. Your next court date is going to be in front of Judge Verena over at Tucson City Court, and that will be January the 6th, 2025 at 1:30 in the afternoon. Do you have any questions, ma'am?
No questions. Thank you. Go back up there. Have some questions.
You doing good today?
This is the Spanish interpreter matter.
Yeah, and the Spanish interpreter is on the line.
Good morning. Just give me 1 second.
Buenos días, en un momento. Good morning.
All right. Sir, can I get your name?
Señor, ¿me da su nombre?
Manuel Iván Rivas Pillado.
Manuel Iván Rivas Pillado.
All right, sir. We're seeing you this morning on a couple of different matters.
Y lo estamos viendo hoy esta mañana, señora, por dos diferentes causas.
One is an arrest warrant out of Maricopa County for charges relating to, it looks like, drug possession.
Uno es por una orden de arresto del condado de Maricopa por cargos parece ser de posesión de drogas.
And then you have new charges here in Tucson involving allegations of unlawful flight, possession of drugs, and criminal damage, as well as endangerment.
Y también tiene nuevos cargos por aquí en Tucson por aseveraciones de fugarse de la ley, por posesión de drogas, por daños a propiedad ajena y por imprudencia temeraria.
And I also see, it looks like you have an ICE hold in place. So whatever we do today, until that's taken care of, you're going to be remaining in custody.
Y parece también que usted tiene una retención por la inmigración, por ICE, y por eso cualquier cosa que hagamos por hoy, vamos a dejarlo bajo custodia.
So let's start with the local case first. In that matter, I've looked at the pretrial services report and the state's recommendation, as well as the interim complaint.
Bueno, vamos primero a tratar el caso local, que yo ya revisé el informe de los servicios previos al juicio, las recomendaciones del Estado y la queja interina.
The state is recommending a $25,000 bond with pretrial services in lieu of holding you no bond.
Y el Estado está recomendando una fianza de $2,500 con servicios previos al juicio a cambio de que no se emita fianza. An interpreter wants to clarify, is it 2,500, Your Honor?
25,000.
25,000, thank you. De una fianza le aclaro, es de $25,000 con servicios a cambio de que no se dé fianza.
Ms. Goodman, did you wish to be heard any further?
Pregunta al
Yes.
señor Goodman si quieres hablar, a la juez. Dice que sí.
Yes, Your Honor, I would just note that he is a flight risk. He does have that prior pending matter from Maricopa, which he's been on warrant status from 2023 and based on the nature of the offense.
Sí, su señoría, ella es un riesgo de huida y tiene otros casos pendientes con Maricopa, con la orden de arresto desde el 2023 y también por la naturaleza del delito.
Mr. Fatak, did you wish to be heard?
Señor Fatah, ¿desea hablarle a la juez?
Yes, please, Judge. Firstly, we would ask you to not find probable cause on one of the child abuse counts because the victim was 18 years old.
Sí, su señoría, lo primero que todo pedimos que no haya causa justificada para uno de los casos de abuso de menores porque la víctima tenía 18 años de edad.
We are also asking you not to find probable cause on the criminal damage count because although there was a collision, the extent and nature of the damage is not described.
Bueno, y también pedimos que no se considere que haya causa justificada para el delito de daños a propiedad ajena porque el accidente, la colisión y la extensión de los daños no ha sido descrita o indicada.
And we understand, given the ICE hold, Judge, we are asking you to set a bond today.
Y nosotros entendemos, debido a que hay una orden de retención por los servicios de inmigración de ICE, si pedimos que se fije fianza el día de hoy.
We acknowledge the state can ask you to hold him without bond.
An interpreter asks for repetition.
Sure. We acknowledge that the state can ask you to hold him without bond.
Nosotros reconocemos que la Fiscalía puede solicitar que sea retenido sin derecho a fianza.
But we're asking you to consider a $10,000 bond instead.
pero pedimos y que usted considere, en lugar de eso, una fianza de $10,000.
Ms. Goodman, did you wish to be heard at all on the probable cause issues?
Yes, Your
Señora,
Honor.
¿quiere usted hablar algo con respecto a los temas que se refieren a la causa probable de causa justificada?
And Your Honor, in reference to the minors, there were 2 minors that were identified as 16-year-old and 1 18-year-old.
Y con referencia a su señoría, los menores se identificaron 2, uno de los cuales tenía 16 años y el otro 18 años.
And Your Honor, reference to the criminal damage, per the interim complaint, the defendant was driving 90 miles an hour when he collided with the trooper's vehicle.
Bueno, y su señoría, en cuanto al cargo de daños a propiedad ajena, en la demanda interina, el acusado estaba conduciendo a 90 millas por hora cuando se accidentó con el vehículo de Trooper's Vehicle.
I ask the court to find probable cause for all matters.
Yo le pido a la juez que sí asigne la causa justificada para todas las causas.
So I am going to find probable cause both on the child abuse and on the criminal damage front based on the nature of the collision, the speed that was involved, and the manner or the types of cars that were involved. I do think that there's reason to believe that a crash involving those speeds would get us to a felony level of criminal damage. So I will find probable cause at this time. I am, oh, go ahead.
Bueno, thank you, Honor. Bueno, entonces yo sí voy a determinar que hay causa justificada para ambos cargos, para el cargo de abuso de menores, y sí, considero que sí hay la causa justificada, igual también para el caso de los delitos de daños a propiedad ajena, por el accidente y por la velocidad y la manera en que ocurrió, que fue con el tipo de vehículos con el que estuvieron involucrados en ese accidente, para determinar que es un delito grave y que hubo daños a propiedad ajena.
I am going to order that you be held on a $25,000 cash or secured bond.
Y yo voy a ordenar que usted sea retenido por una fianza de $25,000 en efectivo o con garantía.
You will be monitored by pretrial services and need to comply with any directives they give you.
Usted va a ser monitoreado por los servicios previos al juicio y debe cumplir con todas las órdenes que le dé.
You are not to possess any alcohol or illegal drugs or firearms.
No debe poseer o consumir alcohol, drogas o poseer arma de fuego.
You are also not to drive without a valid license.
Tampoco puede conducir sin tener una licencia de conducir válida.
You're not to have any contact with any of the alleged victims.
No puede tener contacto con ninguna de las presuntas víctimas.
And I'm going to appoint the public defender's office to represent you.
Voy a nombrar a la Oficina de Defensoría Pública para que lo represente.
Your next hearing in this case will be a preliminary hearing on December 9th at 1:30 in the afternoon.
Su primera audiencia, en este caso, va a ser una audiencia preliminar en diciembre 9 del 2024 a la 1:30 de la tarde.
All right, and in looking at your other case, this is the warrant out of Maricopa County.
Ahora, revisando su otro caso, esta es la orden de arresto que tiene con el condado de Maricopa.
In this case, I'm going to order that you be held on a $5,000 cash or secured bond.
Y para este caso voy a ordenar que sea retenido con una fianza de $5,000 en efectivo o con garantía.
Judge, I'm sorry to jump in, but may I be heard, please?
Okay.
Perdón por interrumpir, dice el abogado, pero ¿puedo hablarle a la juez? Sí puede.
Your Honor, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the warrant listed a $500 bond.
Y por favor me corrige su señoría si estoy equivocado, pero creo que en la fianza está indicado que para la orden de arresto es de $500.
We just respectfully ask that the court set a $500 bond instead of a $5,000.
Y respetuosamente le pedimos a la juez que fije una fianza de $500 en lugar de $5,000.
Thank you, Mr. Fatak. You are correct. I misread that and added a 0 when I was transcribing.
Gracias, señor Fatán, y voy a corregir eso. Yo añadí un 0 adicional cuando lo estaba escribiendo, lo voy a corregir.
And Judge, if the court needs the attorney information, I believe the Maricopa County Superior Court appointed attorney Robert Webb. So if the court wants to reappoint him, we have no objection.
Y su señoría, si quiere nombrar un abogado, pues tenemos de la Corte Superior, Tribunal Superior de Maricopa, el juez es Robert Webb y puede reasignar un abogado si es necesario.
And Mr. Fatak, is that an attorney up in Maricopa? My concern is that I don't believe I can appoint an out-of-county attorney on a matter. That's not really before me.
Y señor Fatón, lo que pasa es que como este es un caso fuera en Maricopa, yo no puedo asignar un abogado fuera del condado. No me corresponde a nombrar el abogado fuera del condado.
So, Your Honor, this information is coming from the court docket, and the court is correct. This is an attorney in Maricopa County, but when Mr. Piatto went on warrant status, he was still the attorney of record, and court records still show that he is still the attorney.
Sí, su señoría, en cuanto a lo que expediente del tribunal, él sí indica que es un abogado de Maricopa y cuando él estaba en el estatus de orden de arresto, él tenía un abogado asignado y todavía sigue asignado ese abogado como su abogado de oficio.
And what was his name again, Mr. Fatak?
¿Cuál es el nombre?
Your Honor, I looked him up by case number on the Maricopa website. His name, to answer the court's question, is I believe it is Rivas Piatto, Rivaspillado.
Y sí, estoy mirando el caso en la página web de Maricopa y lo que veo que me parece es Rivas Pillado, Rivas y Pillado.
But I looked him up by case number.
Pero lo busqué por número de caso.
Right. Okay. So do we appoint somebody now for this? Okay. Mhm. Gotcha. Okay. Gotcha. Right. Gotcha. Are we back on? Okay. All right. I just got some clarification in terms of how OCAC works with regards to the appointment of counsel.
Y acabo de recibir una aclaración de OCAC de cómo funciona el nombramiento de un abogado.
And the information I have is that if I appoint somebody now, even if I appoint the name of the attorney up in Maricopa, OCAC will ask that that person be removed because they're not under the Pima County contract.
Bueno, y la información que recibo es que si yo fuera ahorita a asignar un abogado, incluso si es bajo el nombre que está actual, entonces OCAC lo retiraría porque no está bajo el contrato del condado de Pima.
So what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to set a in-custody review hearing for December the 27th.
Lo que voy a hacer en este momento es que voy a hacer una audiencia de revisión estando bajo custodia para el 27 de diciembre.
And that will be at 9 o'clock in the morning.
Y sería a las 9 de la mañana.
And I will also put a note here, Mr. Fatak, that Mr. Piatto may have an attorney up in Maricopa, but that way folks know and they can get it routed to the right folks. Any questions?
Bueno, yo voy a colocar una nota aquí, señora Fatak, que el señor Pillado puede tener un abogado con Maricopa y que se vaya a el camino indicado por los medios indicados.
No questions, Judge. I learned something new today, so thank you.
No pregunte. Su señoría, acabo de aprender algo nuevo y yo también, dice la juez.
All right, that's all. You're excused.
Eso es todo, ya se puede retirar.
Ms. Jackson?
And this is the interpreter. According to my list, I don't see any more Spanish speakers. May the court request confirmation with the jail?
Absolutely. Jail, do we have any other individuals that need the interpreter?
No, Judge.
All right, thank you, Madam Interpreter. You're excused.
Thank you, Your Honor. Interpreter will now disconnect.
Good morning, ma'am. Can I get your name?
Good morning, Antoinette Jackson.
All right, Ms. Jackson, we're seeing you this morning on some new felony charges involving, it looks like allegations of criminal damage. Just give me 1 second here. So ma'am, you do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can be used against you in court. You also have the right to an attorney. I'm going to appoint the public defender's office to represent you. Mr. Fatak works with that office and can help you for this morning's hearing. So what we're going to do this morning is your initial, basically your initial hearing, and we're going to talk about your release conditions and your next court dates. So I've read the interim complaint. I've seen the pretrial services workup, and I see that the state is recommending a no bond hold. Ms. Goodman, is that still the case?
Yes, Your Honor, the defendant is currently released on 2 separate matters. She also does have a history of DUI. She scored a PBT of 0.359. The state finds the defendant a risk to the community.
Mr. Fatak, did you wish to be heard?
Your Honor, given the state's request, we ask the court to set a no bond hearing.
All right, I am going to set a no bond hearing on December the 4th, 2024 at 2:30 in the afternoon. I'm also going to set a preliminary hearing on December the 9th at 1:30 in the morning, or 1:30 in the afternoon, not in the morning. Just make sure this is, give me 1 second, my computer just decided to freeze. There we go. All right, do you have any questions, ma'am?
Any questions from the judge?
No, ma'am.
All right, that's all for this morning. You're excused. All right, and counsel, this next case is the one that I mentioned earlier.
Oh, okay, Judge. Thank you.
Good morning, sir. Can I get your name?
Renee Jose Maria.
All right, sir, we are seeing you this morning on some new felony charges relating to aggravated driving under the influence. So, sir, you do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You also have the right to an attorney, and I'll appoint the public defender's office to represent you. Before we go any further, I need to put a potential conflict on the record. And counsel, if either counsel has an objection, my inclination is to bump it to this evening's session if you both are in agreement. I will also tell you that based on my review of the case, my inclination was to release him to pretrial services. However, once again, if you got either side has an objection, we'll just move it. So I work for the Pascua Yaqui tribe. I have spoken with Mr. Jose Maria once on the phone in relation to a criminal charge that was pending in the Pascua Yaqui tribal court. It was not my case. It's one that I gave to another prosecutor in the office out there. So that is the only contact that I have had with Mr. Jose Maria. However, it's a small office. I do know that he is currently in our Healing to Wellness Court program, which is equivalent to our basically the state drug court system. That is, I again have had no other contact with his case. However, because I have had some, there's a potential conflict.
So, Your Honor, I don't know what the state is thinking, but given that it's a small office and whatnot, I think to err on the side of caution, we would ask you to continue the hearing to tonight. But I don't know if Ms. Goodman has anything different to say.
Nothing further, Your Honor. I'll defer.
All right, sir. So what I'm going to do, just to make sure that that you get the fairest possible shake, I'm going to move your hearing to this evening. So you'll have a different judge who hasn't had any contact with you, basically deciding your case. So let me just make a note here on your paperwork. And for both parties, I believe that the current prosecutor handling the case may be Milena Acosta, and the defense counsel is Rafael Gallego. So I will go ahead and set this for this evening. All right, and that's all for this morning, sir. Good luck to you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Give me 1 second.
Yes, sir.
All right, sir, can I get your full name?
James Larry Kenyon II.
All right, sir, we're seeing you this morning on a couple of matters. You've got some new felony charges involving allegations of aggravated domestic violence and aggravated harassment. And then you also have a pending city court case involving, looks like, charges of disorderly conduct. So, sir, we'll start with the felony case first. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You also have the right to an attorney, and I'm going to appoint the public defender's office to represent you. Mr. Fatak is seated beside you and can assist you with this morning's hearing. We're going to talk about your next court dates, and we're going to talk about release conditions. So I've read the interim complaint. I have seen the pretrial services workup, and I have read the state's recommendation. I see that the state is recommending a $10,000 bond with pretrial services. Ms. Goodman, did you wish to be heard any further?
Yes, Your Honor, I would just note that the defendant is currently pending 2 pending DV matters with the same victim. In addition, he does have 4 prior DV convictions, and currently he failed to comply with court orders in violation of a court act order.
Mr. Fatak, did you wish to be heard at all?
Yes, please, Your Honor. So about Mr. Kenyon, it sounds like yes, we acknowledge he may have some pending matters, but he has absolutely no failures to appear. He has some support from his family. His mother has agreed to provide some support to him. She does say she cannot provide additional support, but he has family ties. He has lived in Tucson all this while. And Your Honor, if I remember correctly, I don't think the victim suffered any physical injury as a result of this incident. So we ask you to consider releasing Mr. Kenyon to the supervision of pretrial services. But we understand if you're not inclined, we just ask for a lower bond. Given a complete lack of felony history, we would be proposing a $2,000. Thank you. Oh, and Your Honor, before I forget, Mr. Kenyon did indicate that he has a friend he can live with. So Having no contact with the victim is not a plea.
All right, sir, I'm going to order that you be held on a $7,500 cash or secured bond. You will be monitored by pretrial services if you're released, and you'll need to comply with any directives they issue. You are not to possess or consume any alcohol or illegal drugs. You're not to commit any acts of domestic violence. You're not to possess any firearms or weapons. You are to have no contact whatsoever with the victim in this case, and that's Oksana Uzakova. And no contact means no contact in any way, shape, or fashion. Do you understand? That includes social media, anything that you can imagine as being an attempt to contact. This covers it.
Yes, Your Honor. I do. Yes, Your Honor.
All right, you're also not to return to her residence or workplace. And your next court date in this case is going to be December the 9th. And that'll be at 1:30 in the afternoon, and that will be a preliminary hearing. All right, now looking at your city court matter, in this case, as was mentioned by counsel earlier, the offenses do involve, it looks like, the same victim. And it looks like you also have some new charges relating to disorderly conduct. So, sir, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do your arraignment on any charges that you have not been arraigned on. So, sir, in addition to the rights that I read to you before, you also have the right to be present for any and all court proceedings. If you fail to show for court, a warrant can issue for your arrest, and those hearings can go on without you. You also have the right to have a trial and have the prosecution prove their case against you. You don't need to do a thing. However, if you'd like to call witnesses on your own behalf, you can use the court's subpoena power to get those witnesses to court for you. Now, if you are convicted and if you fail to appear at the time of sentencing, you run the risk of losing your right to a direct appeal. I am going to appoint the city public defender's office to represent you. I'm going to vacate the hearing that you have set in CM 2400 5989 and CM 240 And that hearing that I'm vacating is the December 5th at 9 o'clock. I'm going to set a new hearing for December the 11th, 2024 at 1:30. I'm going to order that you be held on a $1,500 cash or secured bond. You are not to possess or consume any alcohol or illegal drugs. You're not to commit any acts of domestic violence. You're not to possess any firearms or weapons. You are not to have any contact with the victim or the victim's residence or workplace. And if you are still in custody on the 11th, the jail will take care of you making that hearing, and it will be a video review hearing, and that will be with Judge Millian. All right, that's all for this morning. You're excused.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Good morning, sir. Can I get your name?
Victor Martinez.
All right, so we're seeing you this morning on some new felony charges involving possession of a narcotic drug and possession of a dangerous drug. Sir, you do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You also have the right to an attorney, and I'm going to appoint the public defender's office to represent you. I've read the interim complaint. I've seen the pretrial services report and the state's recommendation. I'm inclined to go with the state's recommendation of pretrial services. It looks like this defendant may also be eligible for steps or smart court. Does either counsel wish to be heard?
Nothing further from the state, Your Honor.
Just for the record, Judge, we ask you to find no probable cause on the possession of a narcotic drug. All the drugs identified in this interim complaint are dangerous drugs, which is methamphetamine that was tested. There is no narcotic drug identified.
All right, I will find that there's no probable cause for the possession of a narcotic drug. However, there is still PC for the methamphetamine charge.
And no objection is to release in smart court, Judge, and we will waive some time to get to the preliminary hearing in 45 days.
Thank you. That was going to be my next question here. Let me just make a note here. All right, sir. So what I'm inclined to do is release you to the supervision of pretrial services and to set what's called a smart court review hearing. That's a program through the Superior Court where basically they work with individuals and try to provide them services and resources and treatment for any substance abuse or addiction problems they might have. Now, if you are eligible and if you participate in this program, it may result in some sort of benefit to your case. That's not something that I can really talk about today because that's something that's it's based on the person, each individual person and how they do in the program. Is this something you might be interested in, sir?
Yes.
All right, sir. So I'm going to set a smart court review hearing for December the 6th, 2024 at 9 o'clock in the morning. And if you have any questions, my advice to you is to talk to your attorney before that hearing date, just so you have a better idea of what the program involves. And then I'm going to set a preliminary hearing for January the 13th. At 1:30 in the afternoon. Now, sir, you need to make sure that you make both of those court hearings because if you don't, then warrants can issue for your arrest. Do you understand?
Yes.
All right, as further conditions of your release, you're going to be ordered to comply with any treatment or monitoring directives pretrial services gives you, and you're not to possess or consume any alcohol or illegal drugs. That's all for this morning. You're excused.
Thank you.
Morning, sir. Can I get your name?
Jesus Antonio Renteria.
All right, sir, we're seeing you this morning on some new charges relating to aggravated assault with a firearm, possession of a deadly weapon by a prohibited possessor, and possession of a defaced deadly weapon. So, sir, you do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You also have the right to an attorney, and I'm going to appoint the Public Defender's Office to represent you. Mr. Fatak can assist you if you have any questions for this morning's hearing. I've read the interim complaint, the pretrial services recommendation, and the state's recommendation. I see that the state's asking for a $20,000 bond with pretrial services release. Ms. Goodman, did you wish to be heard any further?
No, the main recommendation is based on the fact that the defendant pointed a firearm to multiple victims and he did discharge the weapon. Based on the interim complaint, the defendant also did make admissions of the discharge to another third party. For those reasons, Your Honor, that's the state's recommendation.
Mr. Fatak, did you wish to be heard?
Yes, please, Judge. I'm having some trouble understanding why the prohibited possessor count was charged because looking at the pretrial services report, I don't see any felony history, and I don't also see that Mr. Renteria has an ace-hold because we can get to prohibited possessor that way too, but I'm not seeing any facts that warrant the prohibited possessor charge. And the defaced weapon charge to Judge, there are no facts in this interim complaint indicating that he was using a gun that was defaced.
So the interim complaint that I have includes some handwritten information at the bottom. Did you guys get that as well? So-
I did not, Judge.
Right, so the information I have is that there was a protective order in place that ordered that he not possess any firearms, and that the serial number on the weapon that was located during the traffic stop had been ground off.
Oh, okay. That explains it, Judge. I don't have the handwritten note, but I will withdraw my challenge then.
Understood. No, thank you for catching that. So, sir, what I'm gonna order at this point is I am gonna order you be held on the $20,000 bond. That will be cash or secured, and you will be supervised by pretrial services. If you post that, you'll need to comply with any monitoring or treatment directions that pretrial services puts in place. You're not to possess or consume any alcohol or illegal drugs. You're not to possess any firearms or weapons. You are not to have any contact with the alleged victims or return to the incident location. Your next court date is going to be December the 9th, 2024 at 1:30 in the afternoon. That will be a preliminary hearing. Now, if you are out of custody, you need to make sure you make that court date, because if you fail to show, a warrant can issue. Do you understand?
Yes.
All right,
Yes,
that's
ma'am.
all for this morning. You're excused.
Thank you. Yes, thank you so much.
Just type.
Good morning. Can I get your name?
Denise Monique Time.
All right, ma'am, we're seeing you this morning on, it looks like a warrant relating to a charge of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon or dangerous instrument, and it's alleged to be a domestic violence offense. So ma'am, you do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You also have the right to an attorney, and I'm going to appoint the public defender's office to represent you. Mr. Fatak is seated beside you and can help you for this morning's hearing. Now, I have looked at the interim complaint. I have read the pretrial services workup, and I have seen the state's recommendation. It looks like the state is recommending the $50,000 bond that was included with the original warrant. Ms. Goodman, did you wish to be heard any further?
Your Honor, I would just know that the victim not only sustained the stabbing of the 6-inch bone knife once, but when the defendant and the victim were asked to leave the bus, the defendant attempted to stab the victim again, so she does pose a risk to the victim.
Just checking something really quick. Mr. Fatak, did you wish to be heard?
Yes, please, Judge. So this happens to be a grand jury warrant, so I guess we have to rely on what the state is saying in terms of, at this stage, we don't have any disclosure, so we have to rely on the state to give us all the facts. But Your Honor, the court should note that Ms. Tyne has absolutely no criminal history whatsoever, no misdemeanors, no felonies. She's 53 years old, and Your Honor, when pretrial tried to reach the victim, the victim declined to answer any questions regarding the incident. That's noted on the pretrial services report. I did talk to Ms. Tyne. She is able to find alternate housing. She can make some temporary arrangements with a friend or a family member. And Your Honor, just for the record, Ms. Tyne was scheduled to appear before Judge Cranshaw yesterday night, but the state flagged a potential identity issue with another inmate that was convicted of 5 different felonies. So there was some kind of confusion with who exactly was supposed to be seen and whatnot. So, Your Honor, given all those factors, we are asking you to consider giving Ms. Tyne one chance on pretrial services, given the complete lack of felony history.
And Your Honor, I could provide additional information in reference to what we just highlighted. It's not necessarily the ID issues, but it was more of a priors. We were determining if the defendant had any prior criminal history based on the criminal background that was processed through pretrial services. She showed no prior criminal history in our system. It does show that were prior history. Nonetheless, after further review, I note that I do not locate any prior criminal history involving this defendant, but the facts remain the same as to this incident.
All right, I'm gonna order that you be held on a $5,000 cash or secured bond. I am gonna order that you be supervised by pretrial services. If you post that, you will have to comply with any monitoring or treatment directives that they give you. You are not to possess or consume any alcohol or illegal drugs, commit no acts of domestic violence, and possess no firearms or weapons. Now, for right now, I am going to order that you have no contact with Mr. Mott in any way, shape, or form. Okay, so that includes social media, that includes third party, things like that. I'm also going to order that you not have any contact with his residence or workplace. Now, I am going to check a box on your form that if you are released from custody and you need to go back to the residence to collect some of your things, that you can go with police escort one time to go ahead and get that done. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so your next court date is going to be a criminal arraignment, and that's going to be December the 6th at 1:30 in the afternoon, and that will be at Pima County Superior Court. That's all for this morning. You're excused. Good morning, sir. Can I get your name? All right, sir, we're seeing you this morning on some new felony charges relating to aggravated assault. Now, sir, you do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You also have the right to an attorney, and I'm going to appoint the public defender's office to represent you. Mr. Fatak is seated beside you and can help you with this morning's hearing. I have looked at your interim complaint, the pretrial services workup, and the state's recommendation. The state is recommending a $10,000 bond with pretrial services. Ms. Goodman, did you wish to be heard any further?
Yes, Your Honor, I would just note the victim for the interim complaint did noted concerning threats that were coming from the defendant when he displayed the knife. The state believes the defendant is a continued risk to the victim. That's the reason for the recommendation.
Mr. Fatak, did you wish to be heard?
Yes, please, Judge. I think the court has already noted from the pretrial services report that Mr. Willingham does not have any criminal history, no misdemeanors either from the pretrial report. Your Honor, he is at 19 years old. He's relatively young. I know the pretrial services report does indicate that he was homeless, but he is trying to get housing. He will have no problem not contacting the victim. So given that he has no criminal history of any kind, we're asking you to give him one chance at pretrial services. But if you're inclined to set a bond, Judge, we ask that it be close to $2,000. Thank you.
All right, sir, I'm going to order that you be held on a $5,000 cash or secured bond. You will be supervised by pretrial services. If you post that, and you will need to comply with any monitoring or treatment directives they issue. You are not to possess any alcohol or illegal drugs. You're not to commit any acts of domestic violence, possess no firearms or weapons. You're to have no contact with the victim in the case at this time, and you're not to have any contact with her residence or workplace. Your next court date will be a preliminary hearing on December the 9th, 2024 at 1:30 in the morning or in the afternoon. I keep doing that today. Now, sir, when I say no contact for now, I mean no contact. That may change in the future, but for right now, no social media, no third party, no phone calls, any form of contact, you can't have it. Do you understand?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, that's all for this morning. You're excused.
Okay, your attorney will contact you.
Okay, I don't really understand it.
If we call your attorney's office.
Okay.
And I think that might be everyone we have. Thank you, everyone.